Welcome back and Happy New Year. I hope you had a great holiday season. If you don't know me, I am Luca and I'm currently shooting on Sony, Fuji, and Nikon. And speaking of the latter, Nikon released very quietly, I should say, in 2025, September 2025, the silver version of the Nikon ZF, a camera that is highly regarded in this photography space that we're living in. And this is the camera that you see in my hands because a couple of weeks ago, I decided to basically go for it and trade in my Nikon Z5II review that you will find over here and get this one instead for my personal use. Now, this video is not going to be a review. I already reviewed the Nikon ZF. You will find the video over here somewhere. So go watch that if you're looking for a review. The external color doesn't really grant another review of the camera, but this video is going to be mainly me explaining why I decided to leave behind the Z5II, which is a great camera. It's one of the best cameras around that you can find, at least in the entry-level type of market, and move ahead and get this one instead. So as I mentioned, I purchased this camera with my own hard-earned money, and so this video is not sponsored by Nikon in any way, shape, or form, and if I'm being completely honest, they don't even know that I exist. But this video is brought to you by Freewell with their square hood for the Nikon 40mm f2, but more on that later. So why did I swap my Z5II for the Nikon ZF? There's a super simple answer to that. That is, I'm a sucker for old school, vintage, old style bodies. But that is only part of the answer. The looks were definitely a reason, but it's more than just the looks. And I want to dive more into that. If you know me, this channel is run mainly on Sony ever since I invested in my Sony gear a year and a half ago. And so I've already completed my Sony setup with the purchase of the A7V review that you will find over here. And for everything that is professional or is video related or is YouTube related, I am going to use Sony gear for the foreseeable future. However, whenever it comes to shooting for myself, whenever it comes to shooting for stuff that I like, for something that doesn't necessarily need to go on the channel, or for something that is just for my personal fun, I will never use those cameras. I will use either my Fuji gear or my Nikon gear. And since I decided that both Nikon and Fuji are my fun, personal space type of camera, I decided to go for the vintage looking bodies because I feel more connected to that type of camera rather than with a professional styled camera like the Z5II is. And let's be honest, technically the Z5II and the ZF are basically the same camera. There's very minor difference in what these cameras can do. So I am not losing functionality, but I am losing the tactile feeling of these dials on the top, of the overall layout of the camera that is completely different from the normal Nikon camera that you will see pretty much everywhere. And after months of use of the Z5II, that showed me that I basically wanted to shoot more with my old style Fuji X-E5 than I was shooting with the Nikon Z5II. And that told me that basically I had to do the same thing with my Nikon gear. I had no reason to keep the Z5II because I didn't need that type of body. What I wanted and I prefer shooting with this type of body. So that is pretty much the reason why I decided to go that route. It may be the complete opposite for you. That is 100% personal, and I'm not telling anyone to follow my lead on this because realistically, each one of us has different needs. Now, that type of decision making went also into determining what lens and what part of the gear I was gonna keep for Nikon, because I had plenty of lenses. I had the 24 to 70 f4. I had a lot of filtered glass. I had a lot of stuff that I was keeping, reviewing, and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, since I decided that this was gonna be my fun type of camera, if you follow this channel, you know that I'm a 28 and 40 millimeters type of guy, and that's exactly what I decided to do with my Nikon kit. I only kept the 28 millimeters f2.8 and the 40 millimeters f2 because these are the two focal lengths that I use the most whenever I have to shoot for myself or for just for fun. And this is what I want to introduce you to, the Freewell square hood filter for the 40 millimeters f2, which also works on the 28 millimeters f2.8, but there's an asterisk to that. We're going to talk about that in a second. Now, if you recall my review of the 40 millimeters f2, well, I kept mentioning that the lack of a hood and also the lack of a connection for a normal hood was an issue from both looks perspective, but also from a usability perspective, because a hood is always useful to keep light at bay whenever it wants to ruin your picture. Freewell solved this brilliantly with their new hood solution, which is way more than just a hood. This new hood screws into the lens filter thread and offers a square hood solution together with a circular polarizer and a 1/4 mist filter that can be operated from the outside of the lens through a very well dampened ring. The filter is included and it's made of high quality glass, and it can easily be removed by opening the hood and unscrewing the filter from its position whenever you don't need it. Like every screw-in hood filters, it is basically impossible to get it straight as you screw it in. And Freewell solves this as well because it has a freely rotating function that you can then set in place by tightening a couple of screws on the side of the hood. This filter works on the 28 millimeters f2.8 as well, but in order to do that, you just have to screw UV filter or just a little bit of an extender, 52 millimeters filter, and then you can screw that hood on top of that either filter or extender. That means you basically have one solution for two lenses, and the overall quality of this product is super, super, super high. It's a very well designed piece of kit. It does a lot. It gets you a very high quality glass that you can remove in case you don't need it. It gets you everything you can possibly ask and then some. Yes, it costs $129 if I'm not wrong, but if you know for a fact that you're going to be rocking these lenses the way I do, you can purchase that once and forget about it, because it's going to cover for both of these lenses, and it's going to get you also the freedom of adding a filter that you would probably not do whenever you have a hood filter mounted on, because you have to screw in, screw out. It's not going to be easy. With this one, it's super easy, and the fact that you can operate it from the outside makes it really fun to use, and the overall quality is super, super high from both construction quality and the filter quality itself. If you want more information, go check the link down below. You can find a lot more information, a lot more product info and stuff like that. Now, back to the ZF. I just love this silver version of the ZF. And among all the silver cameras that I've seen around, this seems to be the best iteration of a silver that I found on a camera, because it's not too shiny and it feels exactly as vintage as Nikon wanted it to look like. And I know that this is probably a new addition because Nikon wanted to revamp a little bit of the hype around this camera, that it's now at its middle of the life cycle. I believe it's right in there, middle of the life cycle. This is what I would expect this camera to be. Probably they're not going to replace it anywhere closer than a year and a half from now. And it's a good idea because they're definitely getting a little bit more life out of this camera. I believe this color fits this camera and the purpose of this camera really, really well. And as I mentioned, I'm a sucker for this type of things. And so what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna sell both the 40 f2 and the 28 f2 that I have in the normal version in order to get the SE version, which is the vintage style version of these two lenses. They're basically the same. The hood is gonna work the same. Everything's gonna work the same, just because I don't know, first world problem, I know. But it's something that I will end up doing for sure, just because I like the looks of a very well-rounded kit like this one. Now, if I had a request to Nikon, would be to expand the SE line with more compact, lightweight lenses like these and give users a little bit more flexibility when it comes to focal lengths. I don't know, maybe a 21, maybe something around the 75, something that would complete the line and possibly get us a 28 millimeters that is f2. I would love to have an f2 combo because I believe f2 is a sweet spot for these type of lenses, and the 28 millimeters being f2.8, it kind of sucks. Now, I want to wrap this video up with a question for all of you. As I basically settled with my photography kit for the foreseeable future with my Sony gear, all the purchases that I've done towards the end of the year, I promised myself not to purchase anything big for 2026. It's something that I had to promise myself just because I need to focus more on photographing and producing photography content rather than just being a reviewer. And that's what I want to ask. Would you like to see more of my POV type of video, more of my more experienced type of video rather than only reviews on this channel? For me, that would be very interesting because it would allow me to focus more on the act of photographing rather than on the gear that is helping me to photograph. But I want to hear your thoughts. Besides that, that is it for today. Thank you guys a lot. Ciao, grazie, and I'll see you in the next one.